Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Shakespeare's Globe and to Making Text Move. I am the Globe CEO, Stella Kanu, and I'm delighted to be part of this, our second co-hosted talk series as part of Dance Umbrella Festival and the Globe Talks, which is our series of partner-led conversations for right now, inviting the various fuse points where theatre meets other art forms, issues, or contemporary concerns and allows them space to breathe. So we're kind of this evening aiming for a fairly informal style in this rather ornate setting. But tonight we're not just going to be talking about dance, we're talking about what happens when words start breathing through bodies and when stories stop standing and sitting still. Lost Dog's work sits right at the edge between theatre and movement, poetry and flesh, asking how myth, love and failure live when we give them limbs. We're joined by Ben Duke, the company's artistic director and architect of this beautifully unruly form of storytelling, and by two extraordinary performers who make his ideas tangible, Hannah Shepherd and Miguel Altunaga. Across the next 90 minutes, we'll explore how text and movement can collide, argue and reveal something neither could say on their own. First, we're going to divide this evening into two really distinct sessions. So we'll take you through a kind of live demo and illustration of the work in practice and some of the processes that exist within there. And then we'll have an opportunity to delve a little bit deeper into the practice and process in conversation. So though we've divided this into two very distinct sections, there is no interval or break. So the only housekeeping for today is to say if you want to go to the bathroom or leave at some point, there's no interval and no break. So just do that and be comfortable and be relaxed. And we'll signal when we're ready to shift into from the live demo into the conversation. So you are very welcome. So I'd ask you to lean into your curiosity, even if you feel like you know what the practice and process is you're about to see, and to collectively experience in a new way. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Thanks for coming. Yes, informal. It's going to be informal. I originally said that it was going to be kind of 45 minutes. I did a little rehearsal of this. I kind of ran out of steam after about 30 minutes, which was a bit depressing. So I was like, this is my life's work, and I can only get 30 minutes out of it. But we'll see how it goes. I'll kind of stretch it out, pad it out with stuff, so that I can feel better about what I've done so far. Making text move. Did I must have signed off on that at some stage. Making text move. It's a bit weird. It sounds like a kind of lion tamer, and text is there, and I'm kind of like prodding it and going, move text. Which I'm not sure that is what I do. I don't think that's what I do. But I obviously signed off on it, and it makes sense. I know why that is the type, making text move. But we'll come back to that, because I'm not sure if I'm. Sorry, up here as well. I'm not sure if I make text move. But I do like text. I'm going to start. We're going to do some demonstration stuff, but I'm going to just start with a brief kind of outline of some thoughts, because it's very rarely that I have the opportunity to share such thoughts. No one else cares. Yes, some thoughts about this. So I was thinking about text. Like I do love text. I started doing a literature degree, and I love text. I love it. What I really like, even though I didn't sign off on making text move, I didn't sign off on this either, but I did see it. I saw this. I asked for a chalkboard, so I've got to use it now. Hang on, it's all one word. This was in The Thing, groundbreaking. My work was described as groundbreaking. I like that. what I like about the word groundbreaking is that it's a really concrete word. It gives me this image of someone with like a kind of spade or a matlock, and they're like taking a divot out of the ground, and then into that divot they're going to put like a seed. It's going to grow into a tree, or they're going to pour some concrete, and they're going to build a house. It's a very solid word, groundbreaking. It's generally used positively. I've taken it to be a positive word rather than kind of act of vandalism. It's positive, groundbreaking. It's solid. I love that about words. They're so solid. I imagine lots of you in this room involved in dance. As you know, dance is not solid. It's like it's not even liquid. It's like a kind of gas. It's just like a gas, and it just kind of dissipates into the world. As soon as we make it, there's these little like molecules of choreography. I have nothing to show for my. I have nothing to, and sometimes I find that really annoying. Like I have nothing to show. I've got some posters and a few kind of videos. We all know dance videos are generally, not great, and that's it. I've got nothing to show, nothing concrete. So I love words for their concreteness. Because look, I think I know who wrote this. Possibly, I might know who wrote it. If this person said to me, Ben, I think your work is groundbreaking. I'm just going to talk about groundbreaking. I'm just going to keep going over this so that the word is forever contaminated. You won't be able to hear the word groundbreaking without thinking about me. Groundbreaking. Like if someone had said that to me over a coffee, I would have been like, nah, shucks, thanks, yeah. And I would have gone, that's one person's opinion. It's one person's opinion, and I would dismiss it. But it's here. Look, here it is. I could go. Like I could leave the space, and we could put on some music. Just a random piece of music just chosen. Something like that, and we could all go. If I put my, here. Ben's work. Look at that. And if I've gone, yeah, you get the idea. It's there. There's no one there. There's no one there. It's just this word by itself. It's like it's disembodied. I even printed some out for you, not that I'm obsessed or weird. I could hand this out. Like, Ben Duke's work is groundbreaking. I've only got about 5 of them. But, if I handed them out to you, would you like, yeah, if you distribute it into the, see, it goes out into the world. Thank you. I didn't say this. Someone else said this. It's disembodied. It goes out. You could carry them out into the world. And that's amazing. That's like, that is amazing. It's such kind of basic technology. Like someone said this thing, I think I know who said it, but it becomes like an objective truth. Well, kind of. Becomes an objective truth. I looked up the word objective, and it said objective, hang on. It said objective is existing independent of or external to the mind. That's such a crazy idea. It's there. So I love that about words. Unless they're not such good words, in which case I'm not so keen on them. Like, I took a show up to the Edinburgh Fringe when I was about 20, and I got a review which said, some experiences are improved by the consumption of hallucinogenic drugs. Nothing could help this show. It's good, isn't it? It's good. Oh, it was on a page. It was in a magazine. I read it. I kind of absorbed it. I was like, that must be true. I can't remember who wrote it, but I can remember their words like 30 years later. Here I am quoting them. Yes, powerful stuff. For some reason, if I'd met that person in a pub, I would have been like, whatever, mate, you're so wrong about this. But on the page, it takes on this power. And of course, we all know there's examples of, awful words, lots of weird stuff in, texts, or where people have gone, that is true. That is true. And I don't know why we've done that. Why have we done that? Like, why do I not believe the person sitting over the coffee saying, your work is groundbreaking? Why do I'm like, yeah, whatever. But you write it down, and suddenly I'm like, yeah, that is it. And it's odd because I feel like we are creatures who are somehow, I think we're programmed to deal with the world, the solid stuff. Like we understand the solid stuff. And words aren't solid, but you write them down and we think that they're solid. So actually I went off words. I totally went off them. They're liars. They're liars, and they are a kind of simplification, which I object to. So that was the end of my literature degree. And then I thought, the answer to this is the spoken word. The spoken word is better. Okay, here's an example. Groundbreaking. Just keep going. So groundbreaking, and then there's a divot in the ground, and into that ground you put a seed, and out of that seed there's a tree. That's example number one. I put the seed into the ground, and the seed grows, and out of that seed there grows a tree. Which tree is bigger, the first one or the second one? Yeah, the second one's bigger. I mean, I did give that away with a kind of gesture, but that's allowed because it's part. I'm saying it. So I'm imagining a little tree, a little one, and then I'm imagining a big one, and there's a whole load more information there in the spoken word. The spoken word is better, so much better. Shakespeare, I think, understood that. He was into this. I don't know if this is true or not. There's probably people in this room who know a lot more about this than I do. I like this idea that Shakespeare wasn't actually that bothered by the idea of literature. I think he was with his poems, but with his plays, he's like, whatever, someone else collect them and write them down. I'm interested in just this thing where they exist. We study now Shakespeare's text, and a lot of that is kind of improvisation from whichever clown was doing his thing, and we wrote it down, and now we're like, it's literature, let's study it. And why are we doing that? Because it's just made up stuff, and it's just about that thing, that moment. So that was good. Spoken word. I'm into the spoken word. So that was when I went to drama school. Spoken word, like, wow. I don't know if anyone here has been to drama school. I mean, they cannot shut up. It's like they don't exist unless they're talking. It's kind of exhausting. But they are, yes, they're onto something. I thought we were onto something. We're onto something. The spoken word. Here we are. It's an oral tradition. That's what we're doing, because we discovered words, but the words are coming from our body. Even if they're like air, kind of here, they're still, they're connected here. So this felt better. The problem was with drama school was that, again, we were still tied to the written word. We were still poring over texts, and I was like, this isn't quite right, because we've still got this hierarchy. We've still got this weird hierarchy where literature and text are king or queen, or they're at the top there. And I was troubled by that. There was this teacher at drama school, and he was called Ian Ricketts. He was an amazing man, and he said in one of our classes, every class of his, we took our shoes off and we interlocked our toes. I don't know if anyone's tried to do that. Surprisingly hard. I don't know why I still don't know why he asked us to do that. It was really weird. We were worried about getting agents and stuff. Like, why am I interlocking my toes? And then later on, I think this was our final year, he took us all out to where he lived. And in his garden, he'd planted a chamomile lawn. It was about as big as this trapdoor, like a tiny stretch of chamomile lawn. And we just took our shoes and socks off, and we walked along the chamomile. I was like, this is amazing. I loved it. And I didn't know what it was for, but I felt, I think he knew what it was for. It was about the body. And he was like going, this stuff you're doing, whatever, but if you can't interlock your toes, then you're doing it wrong. He wouldn't have said it as strongly as that, but I'm paraphrasing his intentions. So that was my takeaway from drama school. So then I left drama school, And like an absolute idiot, I thought I'm going to go. I'd been a student for about 100 years already. I was like, I'm going to go to dance school because that is what needs to happen. Dance, how hard can it be? I thought, how hard can it be? Can't be that hard, can it? I mean, I know people started training age 3, but whatever. I'm just going to go and do it. And I did it, and I absolutely loved it. I was terrible at it, but I loved it. And I found that in that space, I was like, yes, this is it. For me, this is it. It's the body. We got away from these line words, and we've got into the body. Martha Graham, did I write that down? She said something good. Movement never lies. It is a barometer telling the state of the soul's weather to all who can read it. Yeah, there's a lot in that. Movement never lies. It is a barometer telling the state of the soul's weather to all who can read it. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, sometimes that's tricky, isn't it? I'm not sure about this idea that the body can't lie. That sometimes feels like we then turn dance into some kind of authentic thing, which I'm not sure it always is. But I do like this idea that, yeah, it's closer. The soul's weather. I love that idea. Like we can kind of do something with this, with the soul's weather, and the body is what's helping us do that. The body is what's helping us do that. So yes, that was my journey. So that was the journey. Thinking text was great. Deciding text maybe literature. Can we call that literature? That's literature, isn't it? It's almost literature. Ben's work is groundbreaking, brilliant. This new short story. Literature through that. Forget that, into the spoken word. Spoken word, kind of, it's more embodied, but it's not quite there. Into dance. Yes, this is my spiritual home. I have made it. What was annoying is that when I left dance school, or probably the end of my second year in dance school, I started going, we're a bit quiet. We're a bit quiet, and we're a bit hidden. Jonathan Burrows, in this amazing book called The Choreographer's Handbook, said, you have to remember with dance that dance is better to do than to watch, which I think is really true. It's true, isn't it? It's better to do than to watch. So if I'm asking someone to watch it, why am I asking them to watch it instead of just getting them to come and do it? Yeah. Amen. What am I doing? And that was the problem, because I was like, I'm watching someone do something, and I don't know why I'm here, and I don't know what's happening, because they are in this thing. They are connected to the soul's weather, but I don't know what's happening, and that was annoying to me. So then I started this annoying thing of going, I found my spiritual home, and I was like, damn it, it's not my spiritual home. There's something wrong. Everyone's so quiet. So then I start swinging. I'm doing this because I find this geography quite useful. So if I think about this place as words, here, about to fall off the edge, this is words, and then I think about, ideally we'd have this stacked, but that requires like a set. Ideally words would be on the top. Not for a kind of hierarchical reason, because like words are like a surface. So ideally words would be on the surface, and then we go down. So we're going to do this horizontally. So here are words, and I'm traveling here. There's a kind of, words story, and I'm traveling away from them, and there's a few less words, maybe some kind of noises, less consonants, and I'm moving back here, and I arrive here, which is the kind of body. That's kind of how I think of it. So what had happened to me is I'd taken this journey here. I thought, brilliant, I found my thing. And then I was like a pendulum. I started kind of swinging back here and being like, now what? And that was me for probably about 10 years, trying to imitate people who use text and movement and going, that's not quite it. Trying to make text move, or being interested in text moving, and then going, I'm not sure that's it. We're coming back to that text moving, prodding it like a lion tamer. Just one thing before I move on from this. I hope this is all making absolute sense so far. Okay, so while at drama school, someone spoke about the origins of theatre, and I'm sure, again, lots of people in this room know a lot more about this than me. And contentious. It's like the beginning of the universe. There's theories, and then people saying that's absolute rubbish. This is the theory that I like, bearing in mind it might be absolute rubbish. So the origins of theatre. Theatre began, apparently, in the hills outside Athens. There was a kind of orgy of bodies kind of singing and drinking and dancing. And they were kind of rolling down the hill outside of Athens. And then at a certain point, some of them got tired, and they were like, I'm just going to sit out for a little bit. But you keep going. And not only keep going, but kind of represent you're me, you know, like I was there with you. I'm just having a little water break, but you keep going. So this division of like spectator and performer, they were the same. They were part of the same thing. So they're rolling down the hill outside of Athens. They eventually kind of was like, okay, someone's going to watch because there's too many people in this pile. And then eventually these people also got tired, and then they started talking because it's less tiring to talk than to move. That is how tragedy began. I don't know if you knew that. I think that's accurate. We can confirm that. The reason I like that is because, again, it makes me think of this journey towards text, and this idea that it all began with a kind of mass of indistinguishable bodies. They're just a rolling pile of them. Right. So that's that. Yes. So this is me on this line, on this pendulum. I'm going to try. We're going to get into some demonstrations now because I feel like I've spoken for a long time. Oh, it's 7:30. That means. Did I speak for half an hour? No. We started late, didn't we? Okay, so my life's work does just span a bit more than half an hour. Anyway. Okay. This is going to look like absolute nothing, but the thing that is useful that I wanted to demonstrate or share with you is this thing around that space there. I had a whole load of words which I wrote out in a kind of what's it called, degree essay thing, which I was going to write up. I can't be bothered, but they're things like, so on one side you have this sense of the kind of subjective and the unknown and the lost and the private and the animal and the chaos and the Dionysian and the emotional and the dance. I put that here. And then here we have objective, known, found, public, human, ordered, Apollonian, rational text. We have these things here. So if I was to try and demonstrate a journey between those two things, like I say, this is going to be terrible. I haven't warmed up or anything, so it's not. But okay, so what I'm trying to do here in this space is I'm thinking about my privacy. Because for me, the body is kind of private. The body is how I connect to how I feel. You know that book, The Body Keeps the Score? So Bessel van der Kolk, he talks about this idea that we have two ways of understanding the world. And we have words, which is how we talk about what's outside of us. Words are for what's outside of us. And they're for telling other people, they're for communicate, they're external. That's what words are for. And the body is for getting in touch with what's inside us. It's for getting in touch with our emotional place. And yes, and he talks about how we, connecting to the body as a way of healing trauma. And that makes a huge amount of sense to me. The body as like a private space. So I'll try and narrate and be. So here I am in my private space. I'm not thinking about Jonathan Burrows telling me that it's better to. I'm just in my private space. So I'm moving. Here I'm trying to move. I'm trying to forget about you. Sometimes it helps to make some noises. Closing my eyes so I don't have to think about you. I'm not thinking about you. I have to open my eyes so I don't fall off the front of the stage, but it's basically this thing here. Private. I can see you. Now it feels more public. Now it's weird. What am I doing with my arms? What a piece of work is a man. How noble in faculty, how infinite in reason, in form and moving, how express and admirable. Can't remember anymore. Here, I'm ready to say stuff. And then I can also think about, can I escape you? Okay, so I'm talking Shakespeare. In action, how like an angel. In apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world, paragon of animals. But to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Yeah. I'm trying to forget about you. But here, I'm aware of you. Here, I feel like I can talk to you. So I find that this is the journey that I'm constantly moving between. And the reason I say that I'm not sure I'm making text move is because what I often feel is that text is actually the still point. So I begin with text. Pretty much always I begin with text or stories. And I feel like text is the still point. Text is the kind of the frame sometimes around the movement. I'm going to ask Hannah and Miguel. Yeah. I just wanted to try and share some stuff around this. So, would you be all right to do the duet? Do you need a little moment to kind of? So, we've been we haven't done. We're starting a new project based on Hamlet. We felt there weren't enough versions of Hamlet in the world, and that what it needed was another one. Yeah. Okay. Do you mind? Yeah. We're just going to watch it. We'll just watch it with nothing to start with. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's movement, and actually we made that phrase quite, well, Hannah and Miguel made it, but the instructions were quite vague. It was like, try not to get pulled into the, you broke it. Hannah's broken the microphone. We were talking about about the kind of the neutrality sometimes of movement or its separation. We'll watch it again. So, for example, if we were to do this thing, so if you just come into the space a bit with me, and you're here as well. So the way hang on, which way around? The way we did this was okay. So I just give context. I'm playing Hamlet now. This is my mother. Not very believable casting. Yes, I'm playing Hamlet. This is my mother, and this is my uncle. My uncle, I was very close to my uncle when I was younger. Some people say We looked a lot like each other. He was great. A lot of time for him, but there was this one thing that happened when I was aged 18. We were at a school dance, and my mum was there and my uncle was there, and I watched them dancing together. Okay, and we'll do the same duet. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. So nothing's changed. We've just framed it. So I've just framed it with some information. And I think that in its simplest form, that's kind of what most of the kind of lost dog thinking is around. It's like, what is the handle? What is the thing that lets me watch that movement material with some information? But interestingly, although we can maybe talk about this later, interestingly, we're not starting the development of that movement material with a clear sense of, right, you're Gertrude, you're Claudius, this is how you feel about each other, make a duet. That would be a way in, but that's not generally the way in. The way in is trying to find something in the body and almost going, what is this, and how do we frame it? Do we have time for one more? What's the time? Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, let's do one more. Do we mind doing the solo? So the kind of thanks. Yeah, I don't know. Yes, yeah. We don't have to do loads of it again, but we'll just do yeah. So if we do this, no, actually, I'll tell you in a moment. Sorry. Okay. Right. Yes. So some movement. Hannah, thank you. Yeah. He's in the moving space. Okay, thank you. Relax. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
With no music, you don't breathe.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, breathing. Okay, there's that. Miguel, do you mind coming on? We're just going to do the lines from the Gravedigger. That little bit. Yeah. We don't have the digging sound, but do you want to move or you want to just? Yeah. Okay. Great. Can't remember the lines. You remember the lines? Yeah. Yeah, very good. Okay, so we'll do this, and then we'll go into that, and I'll play some. Yep. Hang on, let me just cue up the music. Sorry. So again, we're just going to provide a frame for Hannah's movement. Whose grave is it, Sirrah?
Mine, sir.
Indeed, thou liest in it, so I think it be thine.
You lie out of it, sir. Therefore, 'tis no yours.
What man do you dig it for?
For no man, sir.
What woman, then?
For none, neither.
Who is to be buried in it?
One that was a woman, sir. But rest her soul. She is dead.
If this is even real, I don't feel things as keenly as I used. I don't know if this is even real, I don't feel things as keenly as I used to. I don't know if this is even real. I don't feel things as keenly as I used to. I don't know if this is even real. I don't feel things as keenly as I used to. I don't know if this is even real. I don't feel things as keenly as I used to. I don't know if this is even real. I don't feel things as keenly as I used to. I don't know if this is even real. I don't feel things.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, you get great performers and everything works, but there's some. I've missed out some stages, but I think that's a good place to kind of finish this part of it, anyway. Yeah. I think Shut up. Let's stop. So now I think Stella, we'll open it up for some questions and any stuff that's come out of that. But thank you so much, and thank you to Hannah and Miguel.
So this is our opportunity to kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of the process and the setup that you've kind of given us, Ben, and in terms of the demonstrations that you've kind of given. I did want to first say a huge thank you to you both being here to kind of do the embodied literature bit and help us to see the context. And I wanted to also share a little bit about your biogs, if that's okay, and give a little bit of an intro, the kind of signifier that we're entering into a kind of different space. So Hannah, a core Lost Dog collaborator and award-winning performer, that your work balances precision, irony, and deep physical listening. You started your physical training with gymnastics and trampolining. I hope we have an opportunity to find out a little bit more about that as we go on. She trained at the London Contemporary Dance School and went on to become a member of Schechter's company. Trained in contemporary and release technique, she moves with a clarity that makes thought visible. Her performances from Romeo and Juliet to Ruination reveal how gesture, humour and fragility can coexist in the same breath. She played Medea in Ruination, a role that earned her the 2025 National Dance Award for Outstanding Performance.
Good job, I'm already read.
Cuban-born Miguel, a former Rambert principal and Sadler's Wells associate, trained at the National School of Art and rose to become principal with Contemporary Dance of Cuba before joining Rambert in 2007. He's performed works by many leading choreographers. He brings virtuosic control shaped by classical and contemporary vocabularies. His collaboration with Lost Dog pushes those forms towards theatre where masculinity meets vulnerability. His movement carries narrative weight, as we've just seen demonstrated, a dancer of rare power and nuance. Miguel now creates and performs internationally as both a performer, artist and choreographer. Miguel, thank you. Really, really does make a difference to have you both here in demonstration. And I'm going to try and make sure that I'm adapting some of the questions that I've got, because we'd like to hear more about what it feels like to embody a very different practice. One that obviously as long-term collaborators you're really used to, but that give a different articulation from your perspective. So I'll do my best to make sure that we're hearing from you as well. So for the next 45 minutes, we are going to delve a little bit deeper. And I know lots of you are going to be really familiar with Ben's work, but some of you might not be so much. And some of the things that I'm going to say we've kind of heard as a kind of setup in the early stages of your demonstration. I'm really intrigued by what we've heard and the way in which you've kind of demonstrated the focus of your work. We can hear and see that kind of journey from training in English literature, the acting, dance, poetry, a trio that explains a lot about your work, I think. And the work and how that embodies the work that you do with Lost Dog, a company known for turning familiar stories inside out. I really like that you talk about your work, or you call what you do embodied literature, taking text and myths from Milton to Shakespeare to Greek tragedy and letting them breathe through bodies, language and movement. And in your hands, those kind of texts that are really classical, they're not kind of, we talk a lot here about not fossilizing things and giving them the breathing space that they need, not being museum pieces, but being restless, really at its heart about the kind of humanness of that interaction between the kind of architecture that you tried to draw here between text and bodies and breath and movement and journeys and music as well, which I hope we'll also get an opportunity to talk about. Ben's work lives in the tension, and I think we saw this in this Hamlet piece that you were starting to open up with, the tension between what's said and what's felt, where text and movement kind of argue or are on opposite sides or accidentally collide and tell the same truth together. I think it's really beautiful, and I really saw that in that presentation. That your shows mix raw theatrical storytelling with sly humour, or dry humour, I think that should be, and emotional precision. And I really feel that at the heart there is this kind of focus on pursuit. I think that the journey that you described academically, or even in terms of art form, from literature through to poetry, through to dance, is really embodied in this pursuit of something, chasing something of some sort. And I think we kind of saw the demonstration of that. And I wondered if we could talk a little bit about how all of that kind of finds its way into the rehearsal space. How do you create a rehearsal process, space and welcome for your collaborators that allows them to live with some of that uncertainty that is both at the beginning and the end of your process?
Yeah, I mean, Hannah and Miguel should maybe talk about that as well. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is why it's amazing to be able to work with people more than once, you know, and to kind of go on that journey with them. It's very hard in this particular climate to kind of, Hannah and Miguel work as freelancers, and how do you get these people together to kind of do that? Because I think that there's something around it. I discovered this when I worked with Rombe. I worked with Rombe, which is where I met Miguel. And in that process, it became very clear to me that this was not a process that worked for everyone. There was quite a lot of resistance in that moment. Luckily, there was Miguel there going, yeah. And I was like, great, I'm going to focus on Miguel, and Liam was there as well. I'm going to focus on these people, and I'm going to try and do this thing. Because I think for some people, it's kind of chaos. It can be quite unnerving. I feel like some choreographers have a clarity around what they're doing. I'm often saying, like, I don't know. There's this kind of, and I need to be with people who I feel all right doing that with, and people who, again, like Hannah and Miguel, who are extraordinary at this thing of kind of absorbing, 5 minutes before going on stage. That thing we said, we're going to do something completely different now. For some people, that's an absolute nightmare. So it feels like there's a kind of, I'm trying to set up a space where I feel like I can share that I don't know what that I don't have a clarity of vision, and that I'm working with what they offer, and that kind of cycle. And so, yes, I guess that's how I set it up. It's I find it really hard with bigger groups or kind of a room full of people I don't know. But recently, like with Hamlet or with Ruination, where it was people that I knew were up for this process, then yeah, I guess that's the setup.
So what are you really looking for above like technical ability? Yeah. What are you looking for? And then I'd love to know like what that missing thing is that makes this process really different, how that changes the way you approach other work.
Yeah, it's really hard what I'm looking for. I find it very difficult to do kind of auditions, or to, because I don't feel like in an audition context I can really work out what that thing is. I had the privilege of working with Miguel on a project at Rombe, so by the end of that I was like, oh yes, and actually, I mean, both of them, but Miguel was like, he's interested in text. I guess that's the first thing. Not all dancers are interested in text. That's totally fair enough. Why should they be? But it's like someone who is interested in text. And I mean, Hannah, interestingly, has a complicated, well, if I can speak on your behalf for a moment, like Hannah's hadn't really done text before, but there's something about Hannah which was like, I know there's a kind of reluctance to speak, which is really interesting, and means that actually she's amazing at delivering text, even though her background has been kind of physical. So it feels like you're kind of looking, which is to do with attention maybe as well, like someone going, I think little bit of you would like to do this, but you kind of also don't. So that sense of looking for dancers who are, and I mean, I've thought, in general, there's this question of like, it's a lot of text. I could work with actors who move really well, but I tend not to. I tend to work with dancers who speak, and that to me is to do with that kind of needing the body to be kind of central, even if they're not dancing a lot. The body needs to be kind of central to that process. So I think I don't really know what I'm looking for, but I have an inkling that it's to do with people who are interested in text, and I think that thing where people can kind of, you can tell after a while they're up for the chaos. They're up for the being lost. Yeah, they're up for being lost together. Yeah.
How is it for you?
Mm-hmm.
I grew up more in that type of culture of adventure. Not necessarily, even though I could train classical background, but I always have this mindset of almost like a jazz player, like a jazz type of like wandering and going off the rails and come back. So I always struggle with, even in the ballet class, I always felt that after doing the exercises, I want to add something. I want to destroy it completely, and I just couldn't. And that's why I couldn't commit to the art form itself, because I was like, I can't. I feel like there's so much potential. There's so much. What about if Rothbard and the swan leg goes to the other side, and then Rothbard leaves, and then it's a very interesting character, and the swan is not as interesting as the other one. I don't know why. And it's always that type of thing, and I always felt connected to the idea of improvisation from composition. I mean, I'm a choreographer as well, and I love being lost. Or my life has been always about adventure, trying to discover something, what is up there, what is beyond something, and always a big admirer of those choreographers like DVA, physical theater. Pina Bausch, these physical theater choreographers, and then when Ben came, it was like, oh, this is it. Finally, I can do something a little bit more. Finally, I can break out of I feel very comfortble, like Han as well, with the physicality and just being physical and being precise and strong. But I felt like always something was missing. I always feel like there's something missing. I need something. No, like the process as well. Like almost how it's gonna be, the choreography, how it's gonna finish, but the really, really, like destroying everything and see what is at the core of it. I don't know how to. But yeah, I love this idea of Ben coming. Let's work on that, and I don't know. Let's see. I don't know. Let's just go. And then I'm like, yeah, let's go. So you have to love that. Not every dancer loves that process because they love being told the movement 8, finishing 8, and pam, 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 and you finish in your position. You look beautiful in the space, in the mirror, and go. And go. And it's all lovely. And for me, I don't know why, I'm very unsatisfied with just beautiful, awesome dance.
And I imagine for you, Hannah, that the idea of improvisation and the possibilities that collectively devising kind of brings is appealing, but do you have the same kind of experience as Miguel in that process?
Yeah, I think I do. I quite like the chaos. I don't think I've ever really felt like I know what I'm doing, even after years of dancing. So it didn't really bother me.
What does that enable you to do? So, I mean, we smirk at that because we can all lean into that sense of what uncertainty and the opening of possibilities allows, especially in a creative lens. But what is it about that space and that landscape that you're looking for and that you find in the process?
I mean, it's just fun. Okay. It's just really fun. Really fun to find different things, ugly things. I quite like grotesque things or things that are not beautiful. As soon as it gets a bit beautiful, I kind of question what we're doing.
So how does that, as freelancers, how does that impact the way that you leave this process and enter into other processes that are really different? Do you notice a shift and a change?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to just dance for the sake of dance is like... I just can't do it anymore. Well, you often work with older performers anyway, don't you? So I think there's a certain point where you get to a certain age and you're like, I can't just do movement with nothing behind it. So once you've had a taste of this.
So it's totally changed the way that you select work?
Yeah.
And the work that feels appealing to you?
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Can I ask a question, Ben, about adaptation of text? Partly because of where we are, but also I'm really interested in how, with Romeo and Juliet, you kind of finish where Shakespeare left it, and move their kind of lives in a completely new direction. They're alive, they're together, they're trying to live happily ever after. In the retelling of these kind of myths and using movement and the body in order to explore, why did you decide to explore the kind of the tragedy of survival for Romeo and Juliet rather than the kind of romance of death?
Yeah. The tragedy of survival. Yeah, I think that I wanted to make a piece about long-term relationships, the nature of long-term relationships and how they're not represented perhaps as often on stage or on screen as the beginning. We're all so familiar with the kind of beginning relationship, the obstacles that are overcome, and then they come together, and then the film ends. And Romeo and Juliet, for me, was like the ultimate kind of example of that. Like, what is it, 3 days? They have about 3 days, don't they? And then they're dead. There's no chance to get into the like nitty gritty of how do you get a buggy up 6 flight of stairs, and like they don't have to deal with that stuff. And I was like, there's something interesting for me about them as the poster couple of that short-term thing, which I think we've all absorbed, and actually I think messes a lot of us up in terms of our expectations and all that kind of stuff. I think Shakespeare was even like, these idiots, like what were they thinking? Like there's a kind of sense of like we've held it up as this thing, but actually the ordinariness of the continuation felt like that was the kind of starting point, I suppose, for that. It was like, yeah, let's get into that thing, and this kind of epic, gigantic, big feeling story. Like, let's just bring it right down to school runs and stuff like that. Let's get it into that place.
And what's your hope for Hamlet that you're entering into the exploration of?
I don't know about Hamlet. I'm still wrestling with that thing. I mean, it's often, Hamlet. I'm not sure I even like the play. This was like, it's just like I was like, why have I done this one? It's this is amazing, isn't it, about Hamlet? Like, I don't know if you've seen that Kurt Vonnegut lecture. Kurt Vonnegut gives this amazing lecture where he's talking about story structure, and he's got like ups and downs and all this stuff. He's got a chalkboard. That's why I wanted a chalkboard. He's got these ups and downs, and then he does. And now I'd like to show you the story of Hamlet. And he just draws like a straight line across the space. You're like, yeah, nothing happens, and then everyone's dead at the end. I mean, it's not quite true, but he's like, and yet this is such a popular story because there's something about Hamlet talking to us. So I think that's the thing that appeals to me at the moment around Hamlet. It's like we are inside his head because he never shuts up. He's constantly talking about his thoughts and his feelings, and he's all over the place, and he feels everyone's feelings, and he's kind of holds ambivalence in this amazing way. We are inside his head, and I think that's why we like watching it, because there's a kind of intimacy there. So I think I'd like to make a piece that somehow captures that intimacy, maybe totally changes the story, because I don't even, that's the joy, isn't it, of taking stuff that's out of copyright. It's like, it's kind of, maybe that's what it is about. It's about the experience of being inside his head and the intimacy that we have with him, and what that says about this space, what it says about theatre, Like, why do we go and watch this stuff? Because we know that Hamlet is some guy, normally some famous person who's, we've seen them in Mission Impossible, and now they're Hamlet, and it's like, but there's something about that which I love. Like, they sit in this weird space. So I think that's what I hope for Hamlet, that it could talk about that experience, and so it could talk about the relevance or the irrelevance of theatre, and something around that. But I don't know. Yet. I don't know yet. Yeah.
And you said earlier that the text is always first. Yeah. So there's something really interesting in what is appealing for you about Hamlet. But are there some texts that you wouldn't touch?
Yeah. Well.
Anything you can share?
I mean, that's interesting, because I like impossible tasks. I like impossible tasks because you can only fail at them. That's a given from the beginning. So sometimes I'm quite drawn. I took Paradise Lost because I mentioned it to someone. So I'm going to do a one-man version of Paradise Lost, and people were like, that's such a stupid idea. And the more people said that to me, the more I was like, so you asking me what text am I not going to touch? I'm now worried that I'm going to say something, and then like in 10 years' time, I'm going to be like, I've got to make that into a show. But I think there's something interesting about shared things. So myth, Shakespeare, particularly in this country, we kind of share Shakespeare. Even if you haven't seen Romeo and Juliet, most people have some understanding of it, or
but some of the lesser known texts are problematic.
Yes, I mean so the lesser known texts I think I would find harder to pick up, because there's something about the shared joke. So when you said like an impossible, there's a book that I love which was Grapes of Wrath, and a Steinbeck book, and I think about that book a lot because it has this incredible ending. I'm really tempted to spoil it for you, but it's probably lots of you have read it. If you've read it, you'll know the ending of Grapes of Wrath. It's this extraordinary moment, and I was like, imagine if you could do that on stage. But then I was also like, the reason it's extraordinary is because you've gone through 600 pages of this thing, and it's so. We did a version of Tale of Two Cities, which was complicated because the problem with novels was that there's so much information. We spent so much time going, okay, so they're there, that's their mum, they're doing that. Is everyone following this? There was a lot of exposition as we tried to kind of get through it. So I feel wary of stuff with lots of things. So Grapes of Wrath, I really want to do, but I'm also have said to myself, don't do Grapes of Wrath because you won't. There's a translation of form that I think that only works because it's a novel. I think you can only do that ending because it's a novel. I don't think you could get that on stage, but who knows? Yeah, it's Grapes of Wrath. Cross it off.
Okay, noted. So Lost Dog has been around for nearly 2 decades now. What still feels unfinished in your practice, other than explaining it? What's the unfinished nature of it?
I don't know. There's so much. I mean, this thing. It's such a weird obsession, isn't it? To keep wrestling with like text and movement. Like they're such different things. They have different rhythms. They have different. Almost like different textures, you know. And to put them together always feels problematic. So I always feel drawn to the problem of that. And when I started, I was like, there were rules. There must be rules about that. And then after a while, I was like, there aren't any rules about it. There's just fluke. There's a fluke moment where you're like, for some reason, that person speaking then and then starting to move is great. And you try and catch it, and you go, that's the thing. So I feel really drawn to the endless pursuit of those kind of, whatever those are, those flukes, and that feels endlessly interesting. I guess I do now, in terms of this kind of pendulum thing, I do sometimes feel like it's quite annoying to have to tell a story. Like you start telling a story, I begin with words, you start telling a story, then halfway through I'm like, oh, do we have to tell all of this story? Because I'm kind of bored of it now. So I would love to find a way to kind of begin a story and then to really pull even more into this place, into this kind of abstraction, physical movement. I would love to do that where you can kind of, there's an amazing piece, we were talking about this recently, called Betroffenheit, which is by Crystal Pite, who's my arch nemesis, and she's so good, it's so annoying. So Betroffenheit starts with like this, the first half is a lot of text, it's very theatrical, and then there's an interval, and then the second half she strips out all of the kind of theatrical elements, people change out of their costumes, they're wearing more like dance pajama stuff, and then they spend the second half dancing, and it's amazing because it's abstracted, but she's filled the space with this theatrical thing. So basically to rip off Crystal Pite. That's my next plan.
I mean, I think we could talk about it as being influential, and yes. I wonder if I can ask the question for Hannah and Miguel. How has this process influenced your practice? In real terms, not just in terms of the work that you pursue or how you think about your next piece of work, but how is it influencing the way that you embody your movement and your own choreography, your own language?
I don't really talk much, but I don't know. I mean, I don't choreograph. It's too much for me. I don't know. I feel like
that was a sympathetic silence there. I don't know. Am I misreading the room?
I don't know. I like the human element of it.
Say more.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I've always been interested in movement that's rooted in emotion, and it's just that Ben's giving me text with the emotion rather than me just having the body. I think the two is really pleasurable. And to be honest, I'm very picky now with what I do. So I don't have loads of time to practice my craft because I have 2 children. So it's a bit of a juggle like that, but I think the human element
is a decider for you more than anything else about what you do.
Yeah. Did that answer your question?
It's your question to answer. And for you, Miguel, what's been the influence of this being in this process as a long-term collaborator? How are you seeing changes in the way that you work and the way you encourage other dancers to open themselves to the possibilities that you can see and sense?
Well, I definitely admire Ben Tuggy's work. I definitely love, I rip off now, like he feels like, well, he has this amazing way of creating this incredible accepting environment where everything is it's just like we're working hard, but then we're laughing, we're having fun, we are improvising, we are trying things, we're failing but not failing, we're just laughing. We have a tea, we have coffee, and then we sweating, and we are like, why are we sweating? Why are we sore? You don't feel like you're working, and I love that way of. It also has it's almost like each approach now that this is my third. It's almost this beginner's mentality towards a process, but then well prepared, because he comes quite well prepared, which I love as well. As a choreographer, I love that idea. But then he throws you under the bus, which a lot of moments, which I love very much. I'm not going to complain about it. He put me to sing, to deliver text. This is my second language. Then I have to kind of like find cadences and rhythms and go deeper, and then bring Coach and Andrea here, Coach also for us. They really unlocked a lot of things in me, and I started to see dance in a totally different way, with different colors. Suddenly opens up the way I approach to the dances I'm choreographing in space. It's not just movement, but also I question now more. I prepare. I try to use a lot of things and methods. But then with the caring, somehow that type of caring, not feeling that there is a director in the room, everybody, somehow we feel at some point that the process and the piece is ours. It doesn't feel like he's the director. It feels at some point that I am the director. Then the next day, she's the choreographer. Somehow, I love that idea of people having a voice. And somehow he has this amazing ability to bring everybody's personality out by bringing his resources and help, and not just a body and space. Do what you've been told and be a good boy and a good girl. So that for me is very important, because I'm very also drawn to personalities, a human side, apart from the abstraction that the body can bring.
I'm assuming, Ben, that you're happy at this level of the reduction of your visibility in the rehearsal space. Yeah. But I'm also really intrigued that we've spent some time talking about the rehearsal space, the process, the text, and what is an obsession for us here is where all of that meets the architecture of space and the audience. So where does the audience sit in all of this for you in terms of the meaning you're trying to create, or what you want them to take away with them?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like, I think I spend a lot of time thinking about the audience, and this idea that we do half the work and then we meet the audience, and they're doing half the work. This idea that there is no, and that is absolutely the thing that I love about live performance. Like, that thing that Peter Brooks said is like, you've got to give the audience want a job. Like, if you give them too much and their imagination is not required, they will sit back. If you give them something to do, they will lean in. And that's not, we're in a studio, it's really hard to kind of capture, and it's really difficult in dance, because dance often doesn't really have previews. It has like premiere, go, 4 shows, you're done. And you're like, no, but we were just understanding what this conversation was. And that was the thing that I felt when I was demonstrating this thing here of like dance would often put up this fourth wall, and I was like, no, like I could it's like a dinner party. You're like, I feel like I've arrived at your house and you haven't even said hello. It just feels rude. Like, what are you doing here? Why aren't you talking to me? So I felt like that was kind of really instructive in terms of like, yeah, there's an audience. What is the conversation with them? So I feel like I consider them not in a sense of like what do they want, but just in a sense of like, how are we going to, what's this conversation? What's going to happen?
And you can bring them into the fun of that sometimes as well. If the process is human and it's about the fun, we find a lot here, particularly with those kind of top titles, that when you lean into fun and give the audience the opportunity to join you in that kind of dance, they're happy to do it and they do lean into it. You talked about the fourth wall, and in my kind of preparation around all of this and looking at pieces of work, I felt like there are moments where you deliberately play with that fourth wall a lot. What's the why, and what do you hope happens when you do that?
I realized that pretty much every single show begins with a version of like, good evening, hi, how you doing? Like some kind of moment where, and that's because that was when I was in work, I needed to do that for myself. I was like, I need to begin with there being no fourth wall and to talk to you and to acknowledge and to say something ideally about that day. So it's specific. It's like, I see you, you are here, we are in the space together. Like this kind of idea, I think that's forced entertainment. You just roll up your sleeves and go, you know, we got nothing. Because that's, I love the honesty of that as a beginning. So no fourth wall. But then there are moments where it's like, I kind of need the fourth wall, like a kind of safety curtain, to just kind of slide in again and to be like, I need to feel like I'm in this thing. So I guess that's my relationship with it. It feels like, if I was to be reductive, I would say my pieces begin with no fourth wall, and then you kind of gradually move into this place where you're like fully fourth wall, and yeah, you know, the audience are observing something that feels more private rather than in conversation. Yeah.
Great. Can I ask each of you to tell us what's coming up next for you? What's coming up? Yeah, what are you working on next?
Choreographing, hustling, freelancing, teaching, leading workshops, and looking forward for the next week of research that we have. We have another week
Which
of
is when?
research.
We
have another R&D. We have another R&D, and then other choreographies and projects. It's constantly like that, you know.
Hustling.
Yeah, hustling all the time.
Yeah, this is Hamlet is the kind of focus for me now. So we have another time. Yeah, we have another week together, and then hopefully we'll that's the focus really for now. Well, Juliet and Romeo is actually touring as well at the moment, so that's in France. So I'm going to go and see that.
Oh yes, of course, yeah. And there's a performance tonight, isn't there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And for you, Hannah?
Pretty much the same as Miguel, really, and mumming.
Yeah, Papa as well here.
Yeah.
And can I, if there is, I mean, obviously this is part of Dance Umbrella in terms of the festival, a long-standing festival. We're talking about long-standing practices, processes, companies, collaborations. What for each of you is the future of dance?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird time right now in dance. Well, maybe in the arts in general, it doesn't feel particularly hopeful. Although, actually, if you manage to go to other countries, or not all of them, but some of the other countries, some of those other countries feels a bit more optimistic. But I don't know. I mean, you know, I can sound kind of evangelical, but this thing that, you know, that Bessel van der Kolk book where he's talking about the body, I was like, you know, this is really the art form I think we need right now, because it is this thing of like, how do we how do we get
because
into the
it's
body?
about the present moment.
Yeah, it's
or
about
because,
the present moment.
Right,
You
okay.
cannot dance. It doesn't work in any other medium. It's about the present moment. It's about getting into your body, and we spend, you know, this is a thing like that. You know, the internet is like is a version of that, isn't it? Where we can exist in these kind of disembodied words, and we can sit out there, and we have all this trauma that we've created for ourselves. And actually, what we need to do is just spend time in the body. And I think the dance can do that as long as you are, you know, inviting the audience to share in that kind of physical experience. So you know, on the good days, I feel so convinced by it, and so like this is absolutely the art form that we need right now. But looking around in the world, I'm not sure that view is shared. But that's kind of, yeah. So on the good days, I can hold on to that, and on the bad days, I wonder about becoming a novelist or something else.
Back to literature.
Exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, or anything that's concrete. Yeah. Just a potter or a carpenter or something that's like, yeah, solid. But yes.
I'm assuming that there are some shares here around the good days and the bad days and where your thoughts are. Care to share some of them? No. What's your hope for the future of dance then? When you think about your children and you think about the experiences that you've had and what you can see sectorially happening, what's your wish?
honestly. I have no idea. I don't think my kids even like dance.
Have they
like,
seen you dance?
they've seen me dance once. And they didn't, they were like, what are you doing?
With my Cocoa Puffs. Yeah.
What is that? Do you get paid to do that? Yes, I do.
Let's hope they're not in charge.
Yeah. Let's hope not.
Totally different world,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I don't know what to do with that question, I'm afraid.
Too big.
It's too big. Maybe Miguel?
I grew up in a country where dance is very well celebrated, and it's part of our culture. It's part of our way of expressing ourselves. Religion, carnival, sunshine, summer, emotional state. You know, Cuba is drums, Afro-Cuban culture, mambo, cha-cha-cha, salsa. So for me, I grew up in a culture where dance is like when you're dancing, you are like, wow, everything is. And then I came here and I was like, oh, nobody cares. A lot of people don't care. It's always the same people. And I just wish it was more celebrated, more like. I'm like, wow, like this is if you move your body and you feel like your day have changed, as soon as you start moving, you feel like, wow, I feel very sore in the morning, but as soon as you start to move, it's like you move all your feelings around. It's like, oh, I'm ready now to take over the world, I just want also, I just would love to be more supported how I grew up. That's how I see it. I see it like, why it doesn't happen? But also, but for everybody, like, you could see it. It was very well promoted. The way I grew up, and everybody from playing dominoes, they go to the theater to watch ballet, music hall, contemporary dance, and they accept whatever they see. And the same when I go to Germany. I don't know if it was the peanut Bausch effect or something, but there is this type of things of acceptance and not really questioning, but what is about? What is? And it's always, I feel like in here is like normally not criticizing anything. It's just like, what is about? What is? I don't get contemporary. I don't get this. And instead of experiencing the body itself, don't need to have spoken language. I could really read your body language just walking by. I could feel a little bit of that. And I just would love everybody to give more value to the importance of the instruments they carry and celebrate it more and support it.
It's a great call to action and a really good note to end on. I'd like to thank you, all three of you, for your focus and insight.